Hey everyone, it's Alison Heikkila. Thank you so much for joining me. First, I want to start by saying I apologize if you can hear my air conditioner in the background. It is far too hot for this gal to be filming without it, so I apologize if it's a little distracting. Hopefully you saw my video that shows how to use baby powder on a gel press plate. And if you didn't, be sure to check that video out before you watch this one, because it's going to explain how these awesome prints came about using acrylic paint and baby powder. This was so much fun. I had a really hard time stopping. I just wanted to keep going. As you, not only did I say it in the video, but you probably heard from the excitement in my voice. This was just an absolute blast. It was the first time I did it. So if you didn't get to see that video, I really encourage you to watch that before this one. Again, it'll be linked in the description box below. But I had a number of folks ask me, well, how are you going to use them? What are you going to do with them now? So I decided to make a video using a few of them. This is my favorite from the week, and I'm not ready to use it yet. I need something like really great for it. So we're not using this one, but I did prepare a few. Let me show you what we're going to work with first. Okay, so I've got this fabulous Thin Let's Dye from Tim Holtz and Sizzix. It's called Forest Shadows. I love anything forest related, being in the forest imagery, etc. And I thought this would be great to use with this print. I think that this one came out super cool. And I thought that we would do something like this. How great is that, right? Just have to kind of figure out the placement. I was thinking about cutting one set of the trees in gray, but I really just want it to be super dramatic and dark, so black it is. But yeah, this is where we're going to start. So I have, my son made this for me on his 3D printer. It's a frame that has the interior of 4 by 5 1/4, which is typically the size that I work with when I'm working on an A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So it gives me a nice border around the edge so that I can add ink, splatter, etc., whatever. So this way I can isolate what area I want to use of any given piece of paper. You can make these out of cardboard, but like I said, I had my son make this for me on his 3D printer. So I love this whole piece, to be honest, but I think that I want to focus right here. And by putting the frame there, we can see exactly how things are going to kind of lay when they're all attached. And I think that that's really cool. And we'll still have a little bit left over that can be used on something else. But that's where we're going to start. So I'm going to grab my paper cutter. And we're going to cut this down. I'm actually going to make this an A2 size piece. So we're not going to use this size. We're going to go a little bit bigger. But at least it gave me the opportunity to isolate the area that I wanted. So I'm going to cut this to 5 1/2, and then we're going to trim up the bottom, and that will be 4 1/4. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move these out of the way. Again, we can save them for another time. And this is going to be really easy. So even if you don't have this die set, it doesn't matter. Like, I encourage you to just look through what you have, see how the papers influence you. I mean, or vice versa, you can also look to see how your dyes influence you. Okay, so I went through my dyes knowing that I had some really cool Tim Holtz ones that would work for, you know, all of these grungy looking papers. And I just decided which I wanted to use. So that's how this came about. So just take a look, see what you have, and go from there. Okay, these are going to kind of go here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some black foam tape to the back of this. This is going to look like it's white, but that's just the color of the release paper. This is from scrapbook.com, and these are all 1 millimeter thick, and you can see that the foam tape is actually black. So when we pull off the release paper, it will all be harder to see if you look at the card from the side. Okay, I'm not going to do this part on camera. I'll just get this all ready to go, and then we will add it to our piece here. Off camera, I adhered this to my black card base. You could use white, but I wanted to just keep it black. If I were to send this out to somebody, I would use a gel pen or put a white panel in here to write on. But because I use copy paper for my prints, I wanted to make sure that I had this secure onto something heavier than just copy paper. So now I've got my foam tape on the back of my trees, and I'm going to just remove the release paper, and we'll get this part down and then the other piece on top. This is one of those times where I don't really know if I want to add a sentiment or if I'd rather wait to add one, either not at all or when I know who this is going to be received by. Kind of just like it the way it is. I haven't quite decided yet. Okay, that's going to go there. Like so. We'll cut off this excess shortly. I doubled up the foam tape on this one so that it would stand a little taller. I didn't worry about the itty bitty teeny tiny trees. It should be fine. Whoever receives this card will not purposely mangle the little trees. So just going to remove this like so. And now we're going to fit this in place. I want to make sure that this is low so that the background isn't really showing through. There we go. That works. And then we can use this excess here if we want to fill that in. Okay, I'm going to cut this off. We can do one of these if we want to. I don't really feel like it's necessary. Nah, we're gonna leave it. We'll just leave it. It's fine. I don't mind it. This is bothering me because that's a little bit of a weak point. I might tack that down with just a touch of glue. It won't be raised up as much anymore, but I think that it's a little safer because I don't want it to get ruined when somebody's pulling it out of an envelope. Put my magnet on top, and I think that that is a really cool card. We got to trim off the bottom, but I think that that is pretty neat the way it is. And, you know, we used one of those awesome prints from my last video. Okay, let's trim this up. How cool is that? I love it. So that's card number 1 finished. Let's move on to card number 2. Next up, we have the Perpective Moth. And I know that moths and bugs are not everybody's cup of tea, but again, use what you have. Use what inspires you. I love this moth. It inspires me. I think it's really cool. I love how big it is. And I thought it would look really cool with this piece. Love all of these variations of green. I love the bit of yellow. And it's just going to look cool. But the moth needs more. So first, before we start playing with this, we're going to add some things to the moth. So I have a piece of scrap paper here. And I have this aged marine embossing enamel from Stampendous. I don't know if you can get it anymore, probably not, but it's basically just a mixture of different embossing powders and different granule size. So there's some that are chunky and some that are fine. You see the gold? See how chunky the gold is? But then if you look at the blue, it's much finer. Can you see that? So you can make your own mixes depending on what kind of powders you have. But I chose this because the blue is going to be a nice color to go with the green, but it's going to pop. I don't want to use more green. The gold is going to make it shine, which is great. And it's just going to give it some interest. So I'm going to take my VersaMark ink pad, and I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I'm just going to tap it a bit here and there. I'm not going to use these wings. I don't want to use the whole moth. And we'll see what we have here. And if we need more, we add more. If it's good enough, then it's good enough. And if it's too much, then we can brush some off. See, it's just a bit. I feel like we need a little bit more right here. Yeah, check that out. See? Isn't that cool? Now, the thing about this is those chunky granules tend to fall off because they're so heavy. So I'm adding some back on, and I'm going to heat this from underneath so that those bigger granules will not fly away. I don't know how easy it's going to be for me to show on camera. But we'll try. Can you see that? Check out that variation. Isn't that awesome? I'm going to do the rest off screen because it's really hard for me to fit this underneath my camera, and I really don't want to set my phone on fire. So I'm going to finish this off screen. Check that out. How cool is that? Such a simple thing to do, and especially when you're working with something so fine. Hard to add more interest to it because there's not a lot of space there, but man, that powder just really kicks it up a notch. Okay, so I've got this piece here. Look at how that pops. I might actually want to add a little bit more, but we'll get there. Now we're going to figure out what area we want to use. Kind of like it here. Yeah, I think that that's good. So I'm going to just make a quick mark right there, and that can be my starting point. And now I'm going to trim it down. Trim that down. I did actually add a little bit more of that embossing powder to the edges of the wings, and this is going to be kind of like that. And I think that's going to look really cool. You can add vellum behind this if you want to, but I don't want to hide the cool pattern that we created with the baby powder. So this is going to wind up like this, and obviously for this card, leaving that background white is not going to work. So I need to figure out what color I want to use. And I'm thinking that because of this blue that we have on the dragonfly, let's take a look. I think that I want to use Uncharted Mariner. I think that's going to work out really well. So let's do that before we move on. I've recently acquired this color. This is the only product I have in this color. Like, I don't have the oxide yet or anything, but I'm so happy that I finally got this color because it's really beautiful. I like it better than some of the other newer blues that had come out. And it works so well with salvage patina and peacock feathers, which are two of my favorites. I don't want it to be perfect. Distressed is fine. Just want to get decent coverage. I don't mind the little lighter spots. That's totally fine with me. Look at that. Isn't that cool? It makes these darker areas stand out a little bit more too, which I think is great. Okay, so now I am going to attach the dragonfly to this piece. And instead of how before I added the background to the card base first for stability, I don't want to do that here because I want to trim my dragonfly, and I don't want to trim the dragonfly to the edge of the card. I want to trim it to the edge of the panel. So I'm going to glue that off camera because you don't want to watch me do all of that, and then we'll move on. Okay, I've got my glue on here. We're going to add it like this. And that's going to stay. All right, heavy block on top. Let that sit. And we'll see what it looks like after. I grabbed the Holding Your Heart sentiments from the Collaged Birds collection by Dina Wakley and Spellbinders. And I quickly set up Better Press the set and cut them all out. I wanted to point something out though. I botched this one. I accidentally put the tape on my paper right where it was supposed to say thanks. But instead of throwing this out, I'm going to cut that off. And not today, not for this card, but I'm going to just use a die cut thanks and then have this as a sub-sentiment. So even these little mistakes that you could be making, because I know I make them all the time, see if there's a way that you can make it work for you later on, and then it won't look like a mistake anymore. Okay, so this is dry, but look how cool this is. It cuts out half of the words all at once because it comes in 2 press plates, and then you cut one half out, you cut the other half out, and then you have all of these, and I love that it has this like faux torn edge. Isn't that fab? Love it. Okay, so before we decide on a sentiment, we're going to trim off the excess part of the moth. Save that. Use it another time because it's gorgeous. This is going to go like so. I used Twilight VersaFine Clair ink for the Better Press sentiments because it goes so well with Uncharted Mariner. Not Sparkle Like You Mean It, not Have an Epic Birthday, not this one. Don't Be Tamed. That's a good one. Yep, that's the one. But we have to do something to it because it's too white. So let me glue this panel to the card base and then we'll work with this. Okay, that's all dry. We're gonna fix this. I'm gonna zoom in. I have Melon Ice Catherine Pooler ink, and I'm going to just smush it on there. And I don't want it to be perfect because nothing about this is perfection, right? It's got a nice grungy, kind of messy look, and that's what we're going for. Now I'm going to take Lime Rickey and kind of tap that here and there. Do the edges so that there's no white showing. And now we have like a cool look. It's not super messy, but it's not perfectly clean either. It works really well. Look at that. See that? I should clean this up first, right? Before I get it everywhere. Okay. Isn't that cool? I love it. Okay, let's add this. I was thinking about adding some sequins, but I just don't think that I want to. Check that out. Oh yeah. I'm gonna zoom out. That is cool. Perfect. Card number 2 is done. Let's move on to card number 3. So for the first 2 cards, we used our paper as the background, right? Obviously, you can do that till the cows come home. There's no, you don't have to ever change doing this. But what else can you do with this? Well, just like we've been using some dies throughout this video, we're going to use some more, but this time we're going to die cut this paper. I'm happy to say that this die set is back. It came out of retirement. Even if it didn't, I was going to use it anyway. It's called Leaf Fragments. It's one of my favorite die sets, not just of Tim Holtz, but of all time. I am obsessed with it. This picture doesn't do the size justice of the foliage. If you love leaves, if you love distressed things, this is the set to get. I love this set so much. You can see that I've already played with this with other gel press prints that I've made. These are some older ones that I just didn't get around to using it. Look at how fab that is. Isn't that cool? Cut it out of black so that I could back it. See? Beautiful. Love it. Okay, so we're going to do that today with this piece because it's going to look amazing. We just need to decide which leaves and where on the print we're going to use it. Obviously, this is fabulous. This is really cool too. We'll cut out 2 leaves and see where it takes us. I love this one. I love them all. Don't get me wrong. Let's go with, you know what? Let's use this one because there's a lot of closed space on this one, and then we'll get a lot of this showing. So we're going to go here. I'm going to tape that down. And then I think we'll go here. And eventually I'll wind up die cutting this whole piece, but for now we'll just cut the 2 leaves and see what we get. All right, let's take a look. Want to be careful because it's copy paper, but the acrylic paint that we used on here is going to definitely help thicken it up a bit, make it a bit sturdier, but you still want to be careful. It's still pretty delicate. See that? How cool is that? I don't know if we're going to use both leaves on our last card, but we'll see. See that? That is really nice. I love it. Okay, moving on. So I went through my prints again, and I came up with this one first. This is just a roll-off print. There's no, I didn't use this on the gel plate at all, and that's not bad. I feel like it's not quite enough. And then I saw this one, and I think that this section is really cool, right? Go with either of those. Where's my frame? I'm really thinking that I like this. I think that that's a pretty cool looking card right there. So we're going to cut this down and that will be our card. Okay, that is cut down. We have this here. I want to back this with black cardstock, so I'm going to cut this one more time out of black just to give it some more stability. And we need to pick a color for our edge. Okay, I back that with black cardstock so it's nice and sturdy, and right off the bat scattered straw comes to mind. I just think that that's going to make a nice color for our base here. It's not going to be overpowering. It's going to blend in with that cool background. Perfect. It's going to go like this. It's going to go on top. And then, you know, we've got all of these sentiments from the last card. These are going to work. I love this one. I carry your heart with me. I think that's so cool. Thank you, truly. You have the power, my dear. You are simply wonderful. Aren't these great sentiments? They're so different. Like, it's not just, you know, the same old thing. It's not just happy birthday. It's like all sorts of really heartfelt, interesting things that give you all the feels, right? I am holding your heart. I use this on sympathy cards a lot. It's really good. I think I want to go with you have the power, my dear. I think that that's going to work. Okay, so glue this, add color to this. Okay, those are glued down. I've got my yellow brush here. I'm going to see what comes out of it. I don't want it to be perfect, again, like usual. I don't really know what color I want, so I'm adding some of the yellow. That's a good start. I want to grab some green. I'm not adding ink to the brushes. I'm just using the residual color that's on there. See? Nice and easy. Didn't have to think about, which yellow, which green. Whatever's on the brush is what we're going to use. And that's that. So we're doing some really basic things with these papers that we made last week, these prints. You can do more. You can add more layers to them. You can stencil on them. You can emboss them. You can use embossing folders with them. Did I say stencil? You can totally stencil with them. There's all sorts of things that you can do, but I wanted to give you baby steps. So these are some of the things that you can do with these prints. And these cards are all really simple to do. Now, granted, you may not have the same dies that I have, and that's okay. Use whatever you have that makes you happy. Oh, I love them. They're so cool. I love the prints. I love the cards. I hope you do too. I hope you learned some things between the video for the prints and the video today. I hope that you have a bunch of ideas and that you just start making stuff. Go play. Don't think, just play. Have a great time. That's it for me today. I will be back very soon with another video. Be well, stay safe. Peace out.